Hey there, space nerds and history buffs. Before we dive into today's mind-melting story, smash that like button and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Now, picture this. It's July 20th, 1969. Humanity just did something absolutely bonkers. We strapped three dudes to a controlled explosion, shot them 240,000 miles into space, and two of them actually walked on the freaking moon. Neil Armstrong bounces around like he's on a cosmic trampoline, says his famous line about giant leaps, and plants an American flag that's probably been bleached white by solar radiation by now. The whole thing was recorded in glorious, crystal-clear detail by NASA's best equipment. You'd think those tapes, the original recordings of literally the most significant moment in human exploration, would be treated like the crown jewels. Maybe locked in Fort Knox between the gold bars and whatever they're really hiding in Area 51. But nope, they're gone, vanished, erased, wiped cleaner than my browser history after my mom asked to borrow my laptop. And the reason? NASA needed to save a few bucks on videotape. I'm not kidding. The agency that figured out how to land on the moon couldn't figure out how to buy more storage media. This is the story of the greatest oops in human history. So buckle up because this ride goes from that's funny to what the actual, real quick. Let's time travel back to the summer of '69. And no, I'm not talking about that Bryan Adams song that your dad still plays way too loud in the car. I'm talking about when NASA was basically the coolest thing since sliced bread, and sliced bread was still pretty new and exciting. The Apollo 11 mission wasn't just some space thing. This was humanity's first baby step into becoming a spacefaring species. An estimated 650 million people, that's about 1/6 of the entire planet at the time, were glued to their fuzzy black and white TVs, watching three guys in what were basically glorified tin cans do something that up until that point only existed in science fiction novels and fever dreams. But here's what most people don't know. What you saw on TV was actually the crappy version. I'm serious. NASA had this incredibly sophisticated slow-scan TV camera on the lunar module that recorded everything in much higher quality than what got broadcast to the world. Think of it like this. Imagine if someone filmed the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy in stunning 8K IMAX quality, but then only released it on YouTube at 240p with potato audio. That's basically what happened with the moon landing broadcast. The real footage, the good stuff, was being recorded on these massive magnetic tape reels. We're talking about professional-grade equipment that cost more than most people's houses. These weren't your grandpa's 8-track tapes we're talking about here. These were serious, industrial-strength data storage devices, each one about the size of a large pizza box and probably twice as heavy. NASA had thousands of these things. Boxes and boxes of magnetic tape containing not just the moon landing, but telemetry data, scientific measurements, communications between Houston and the astronauts, heart rate monitors, oxygen levels. Basically everything you'd want to know about humanity's first off-world field trip. And here's the kicker. NASA knew this stuff was important. They labeled everything. They had filing systems. They had people whose entire job was to catalog and store this data for future generations of scientists, historians, and conspiracy theorists to analyze. So what could possibly go wrong? Fast forward to the late 1970s. The moon landing is becoming old news. People are more interested in disco, bell-bottom jeans, and pretending that the '60s never happened. NASA's budget is getting slashed faster than a horror movie victim. And suddenly, the agency that put humans on another celestial body is pinching pennies like your cheapskate uncle at a restaurant. Now, you have to understand, magnetic tape in the '70s and '80s wasn't cheap. We're not talking about buying a pack of blank CDs at Best Buy. Each one of these professional-grade tapes could cost hundreds of dollars in today's money. And NASA was going through them like a teenager goes through data on an unlimited phone plan. By the early 1980s, some brilliant cost-cutting genius in NASA's accounting department, and I use the term genius with all the sarcasm I can muster, looked at their storage situation and had what they probably thought was a light bulb moment. Wait a minute, this person probably said while adjusting their pocket protector, we've got all these old tape from the '70s just sitting around collecting dust, and we need new tapes for current missions. What if we just reuse the old ones. Now pause for a second and let that sink in. This is like the Library of Alexandria going, you know what, we need more shelf space. Let's just burn all these old scrolls and use the ash to make new papyrus. But wait, it gets worse. Because NASA didn't just reuse a tape, or even a few tapes. Between 1975 and 1982, they systematically reused over 200,000 tapes. 200,000. That's not a typo. That's not an exaggeration. That's the actual documented number. To put that in perspective, if you stack those tapes on top of each other, the pile would be about as tall as a 40-story building. A skyscraper of erased history. And what did they record over this priceless historical data? Satellite weather information. Routine telemetry from boring missions. The space equivalent of grocery lists and your aunt's vacation photos. The best part? Nobody thought to ask, hey, should we maybe keep the moon landing tapes? It was just standard operating procedure. Old tapes go in one end of the machine, new recordings come out the other end. No questions asked. No second thoughts. Just bureaucratic efficiency at its finest. The story goes from bureaucratic oops to how did nobody think of this? For about 20 years, 2 decades, nobody even thought to check on the original moon landing tapes. It's like having the Mona Lisa in your attic for 20 years and never thinking to take a peek under the dust cover. Then, in the early 2000s, some NASA retirees, bless their suspicious, detail-oriented hearts, started asking uncomfortable questions. These were the guys who had actually worked on the Apollo missions, who remembered spending months making sure every single detail was perfect, who had risked their careers and reputations on getting humans to the moon and back safely. And they were like, hey, whatever happened to those original tapes? You know, the good footage of the moon landing? Shouldn't we have those somewhere? NASA's response was basically, let us get back to you on that. What followed was like the world's most depressing treasure hunt. NASA employees started combing through archives, storage facilities, and forgotten basements like they were searching for the Holy Grail. Except instead of eternal life, they were looking for magnetic tape. They searched through over 10,000 boxes. 10,000. That's enough boxes to fill several warehouses. They called up retired employees and asked awkward questions like, hey, Bob, you remember those moon landing tapes? Please tell me you didn't use them to record your grandson's birthday party. They even called Australia. Why Australia, you ask? Because the tracking stations there had received some of the original transmissions. NASA was literally calling the other side of the planet going, please tell me you guys kept better records than we did. The Australians were probably like, mate, you guys went to the moon. We just watched it on TV like everyone else. During this frantic search, one NASA technician, and I really hope this guy got a stern talking to, casually mentioned, oh yeah, I think we reused those. You think you might have erased the original moon landing footage? This is like the Louvre going, yeah, I think we might have accidentally painted over the Mona Lisa when we were touching up the bathroom walls. By 2005, the writing was on the wall. Or rather, the writing wasn't on the tapes because there were no tapes left to write on. NASA finally had to face the music and admit what had become painfully obvious. The original Apollo 11 tapes were gone. Erased. Kaput. They had probably been recorded over with data about cloud formations or satellite positions or whatever other mundane space stuff was happening in the early 80s. Now, you'd think this would be the end of our story. The original moon landing footage was gone, and that was that. Game over. Thanks for playing. Better luck next time, humanity. But NASA wasn't ready to give up. In what can only be described as the most expensive enhanced moment in history, they decided to do what any self-respecting organization does when they've lost the original. They went to Hollywood. I'm not making this up. NASA literally hired professional film restoration experts. The same people who restore classic movies and make old films look shiny and new, to work their magic on whatever footage they could find. They scoured television stations around the world, looking for the best surviving copies of the broadcast footage. They found kinescope recordings, which is basically filming a TV screen with a movie camera. Think of it as the 1960s equivalent of using your phone to record a YouTube video. These restoration experts worked for months, frame by frame, cleaning up the image, reducing noise, enhancing contrast, and basically performing digital CPR on 40-year-old footage. They used techniques that would make the folks at ILM jealous. The result? The restored Apollo 11 footage that you can find today. It's not the original. That's gone forever. But it's probably as close as we're ever going to get. Think of it like this. Imagine if someone accidentally deleted the only copy of your favorite family video, but then spent months recreating it from security camera footage and your neighbor's blurry phone recording. It's better than nothing, but it's not the same thing. The restoration project cost NASA hundreds of thousands of dollars and took years to complete. They could have bought a lot of magnetic tape with that money. Just saying. But here's the thing that really gets me. This whole disaster could have been prevented with about as much effort as it takes to put a sticky note on something. All someone had to do was write "Don't reuse these" in big, bold letters on the Apollo 11 tapes. That's it. Problem solved. Instead, we got the most expensive lesson in backup storage in human history. So why am I telling you about NASA's epic tape fail? Is it just because I enjoy watching bureaucratic disasters unfold in slow motion? Well, partly yes. But there's actually a bigger point here. This story is a perfect example of how the most important things in life can be lost through the most mundane, everyday decisions. Nobody at NASA woke up one morning and said, "You know what? Let's deliberately destroy one of humanity's greatest achievements." It happened through a series of small, seemingly reasonable decisions made by people who were just trying to do their jobs and save a little money. It's the bureaucratic equivalent of death by 1,000 paper cuts, except instead of paper cuts, it's magnetic tape erasure. And instead of death, it's the permanent loss of irreplaceable historical footage. And this isn't just a NASA problem. This kind of thing happens everywhere. How many family photos have been lost because someone's hard drive crashed and they forgot to make backups? How many important documents have been accidentally deleted? How many priceless recordings have been taped over? The difference is that most of us aren't dealing with footage of the first humans to walk on another world. But there's also a broader lesson here about institutional memory and the importance of asking the right questions. NASA in the 1980s was full of brilliant engineers and scientists, but apparently nobody thought to ask, "Hey, are we sure it's okay to reuse these particular tapes?" It's like that famous quote, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." Except in this case, it's the only thing necessary for the loss of historic footage is for good engineers to not ask questions about tape reuse policies. Today, NASA has multiple backup systems and digital storage. The chances of accidentally erasing something this important again are pretty much zero. But the moon landing tapes? Those are gone forever, along with whatever enhanced details they might have revealed about humanity's first steps on another world. And somewhere out there, maybe in someone's attic, maybe in a forgotten storage unit, maybe in the basement of a TV station that went out of business decades ago, there might be one more copy of the original footage. Some lucky tape that escaped the great erasure of the 1980s. If you ever find yourself cleaning out an old storage space and come across a reel labeled Apollo 11 or Moon Landing or even just July 1969 space thing, do not record over it. Call NASA. Call the Smithsonian. Call me. Call somebody. Because you might just be holding the holy grail of space exploration. And that, my friends, is the story of how NASA accidentally deleted the moon landing. It's a tale of human achievement, bureaucratic bungling, and the eternal struggle between doing things right and doing things cheap. If this story made you simultaneously laugh and cry, which, let's face it, is the appropriate response to most of human history, then smash that like button like it's a NASA budget approval form. Hit subscribe for more stories of historical facepalms, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an episode.